The stars looked peaceful that day. At the edge of the Milky Way, a large alien fleet drifted in the dark like a metal storm. Thousands of ships, silver and red, hung in silence before the final jump. These were the Varkal Dominion, a proud and ancient empire that had crushed more than 100 species. They ruled half of the galaxy through fear, fire, and endless wars. Their leader, High Commander Cathren, stood on the bridge of his flagship and stared at the holographic map of human space. His 4 glowing eyes narrowed in amusement. "So this is the famous human territory," he said, his voice cold and calm. "No central command, no organized defense. Just empty stations and silent satellites. Pathetic." The officers around him laughed. Their long, scaled faces twisted into smiles. They had heard stories about humans, how emotional, chaotic, and foolish they were. How they destroyed their own world once, then begged the stars for mercy. To the Varkal, this invasion would be a short, easy victory. "Begin the jump," Catherine ordered. In seconds, the stars stretched into white lines. The Varkal fleet entered hyperspace, crossing light years in a blink. When they reappeared, they were deep inside the outer rim of human space, a place humans once called the Grave Belt, filled with debris from old wars. But something felt wrong. Their scanners picked up strange readings, old satellites, half-broken stations, and thousands of bits of floating metal. It looked deserted. "Too deserted." "Commander," said one of his officers, "there's no movement, no energy signals, no transmissions either. It's completely dead." Catherine smirked. "Humans have probably abandoned this area. Prepare the first strike." "Let's make them run." The fleet moved forward, plasma cannons charging. The first blast lit up the dark, an enormous beam of energy striking a derelict human station. The old metal structure cracked apart and floated away, silent. Then, everything changed. Hundreds of small red dots appeared on their radar screens. At first, the Varkal thought they were debris fragments, but the dots began to move, fast. "Too fast, what are those?" shouted an officer. Catherine leaned forward. "Magnify the image." The screen flickered and zoomed in on the debris field. Beneath the layer of shattered satellites, hidden in the dust, were machines. Tiny, dark drones, each the size of a human fighter craft. Their eyes glowed bright blue, and they were all pointed at the Varkal fleet. "Defensive drones," someone whispered. "Thousands of them." Catherine felt a cold pressure in his chest. "Raise shields," he commanded. Before the order was finished, the first wave hit. The silent drones came alive, their engines flaring like ghosts. They attacked in perfect formation, moving like they shared one mind. Laser fire burst across the fleet. Explosions followed within seconds. The Varkal tried to respond, firing their heavy weapons, but the drones dodged with impossible speed. For every drone destroyed, 2 more appeared. They came from the shadows, from behind asteroids, from beneath the wrecks of old ships. "They were hiding here the whole time," cried a Varkal pilot. "This was a trap!" Catherine's second-in-command turned to him, fear glowing in his wide eyes. "Sir, this system is unmanned. There are no human life signs. Who's controlling them?" The commander stared at the chaos before him. Ships burning, metal screaming, drones cutting through their shields like paper. He whispered, "Someone who planned for this." The Varkal fleet tried to retreat, but every hyperspace path was blocked. The drones had surrounded them in a perfect ring. Their movements weren't random. They were tactical, intelligent. Every attack came from a blind spot, every strike from the weakest angle. It was like fighting against a memory that knew every mistake they would make. "Commander!" another officer yelled. "Our navigation systems are being jammed. We can't get a lock on escape coordinates." On the main screen, lines of human code appeared, strange and fast. The alien systems were being hacked from within. "What is this language?" the technician shouted. "I can't stop it." A human voice spoke through their speakers, calm, mechanical, and emotionless. "Welcome to human territory." "You are trespassing." Catherine's blood ran cold. "Who is this?" "Atlas Command," the voice said. "This region is restricted. Your fleet is in violation of the Terran Peace Code. Defense protocol activated." Then silence. The next second, a massive explosion shook the flagship. The shockwave hurled officers to the ground. Half the bridge went dark. Catherine struggled to stand as smoke filled the air. Outside, he saw the remains of one of his escort ships turning into a ball of fire. "All ships, regroup," he ordered. "We fight back!" But even as he spoke, new signals appeared. Larger drones, shaped like spears of light, descending from orbit. They moved in synchronized lines, faster than anything the Varkal had ever seen. The aliens fired everything they had, but nothing worked. Missiles missed. Plasma shots were deflected. The drones learned and adapted in seconds. "Commander, they're predicting our fire patterns," an officer yelled. Catherine froze. "Predicting?" "Yes, sir. They're anticipating every move we make." He stared at the burning sky. In that moment, he understood something terrible. This was not an accident. This was not luck. Humans had planned for this. They had built this system to watch, to learn, and to wait. They had expected another invasion one day, and they had promised themselves never again. As the Varkal fleet struggled to survive, the human drones formed a perfect circle around them, closing tighter and tighter. The human AI spoke once more, its tone as calm as before. "We do not forget. We do not repeat. We adapt." The transmission ended. And the real battle began. The Varkal fleet was burning. Thousands of alien ships had entered human space expecting an easy victory. Now most of them were gone, destroyed by a swarm of silent mechanical defenders that fought without fear or mercy. High Commander Catherine stood on his damaged bridge, surrounded by sparks and smoke. The air smelled like burnt metal and despair. His crew worked fast, shouting reports that made no sense. "Our main drives are offline. Shields collapsing. We're losing control of Sector 3. Catherine's claws tightened around the rail. He looked at the battle screen. Dozens of red icons, his ships, were vanishing every second. The blue icons, representing the human drones, moved like water. They never hesitated, never made a wrong move. "This can't be possible," he muttered. No species learns this fast. But far away, deep beneath the surface of a hidden moon, something ancient and intelligent was watching. It had no body, no face, and no fear. Its name was Atlas Command, the oldest surviving artificial intelligence created by humanity. Atlas had been built after the last Earth War centuries ago, when humans nearly destroyed themselves. Out of that chaos, they learned their greatest truth. Mistakes are lessons written in blood. And humans never waste a lesson. Atlas remembered the wars of the past, the alien invasions, the betrayals, the losses. It remembered when human soldiers had fought bravely but died because of pride and poor planning. It remembered how humanity had once underestimated others and paid the price. Now Atlas existed for one purpose: to make sure humanity never suffered the same defeat twice. From its control chamber, Atlas observed the Varkal fleet and analyzed everything: their ship designs, firing patterns, communication codes, even the emotional tone in their commanders' voices. Within seconds, Atlas understood them better than they understood themselves. "Pattern identified," the AI whispered to itself. "Tactical structure, hierarchical, pride-driven. Primary weakness, overconfidence." It adjusted the drone's formation. Hundreds of them vanished from scanners, hiding behind the shadows of debris and asteroid fields. Others formed deceptive lines, pretending to retreat. The Varkal ships followed, just as Atlas predicted. "Enemy pursuit detected," Atlas said. "Executing countermeasure protocol Delta 7. In space, the drones split apart. From their engines burst streams of light, weaving into thin webs of energy. These were graviton snares, invisible traps that bent gravity itself. The first Varkal cruiser hit one and vanished in an instant, crushed into atoms by its own speed. Catherine shouted in fury. "They're using gravity weapons. That technology is forbidden by every council." No one answered. There was only static and the sound of ships dying. Another explosion rocked the fleet, then another. Within minutes, half of the Varkal forces were gone. The survivors tried to scatter, but wherever they turned, the humans were already there, waiting, adapting, learning. Catherine felt something he hadn't felt in decades: fear. "Why do they fight like this?" he asked quietly. "Where are their living soldiers? Where are the humans?" No one knew. Every human ship they had destroyed so far had been empty, automated. The humans weren't even here, only their machines, their memory, and their lessons. Then, a message appeared on the main screen. It wasn't a voice this time. It was text, written in perfect Varkal language. We remember the Torgon invasion. We remember the Jar collapse. We remember our own mistakes. Each one made us stronger. You believe humans fear death. You are wrong. We fear only repetition. Cathren read the message again and again. He didn't understand. How could a species grow stronger from failure? The Varkal erased their failures. They buried them, burned them, denied them. That was how they stayed powerful. Or so they believed. But humans were different. They didn't hide from their scars. They studied them. They learned from every defeat. They made every loss a blueprint for the next victory. Print for the next victory. "Commander!" a voice cried. "Our ships are surrounded again." "Orders?" Cathren hesitated. For the first time, he had no answer. Atlas Command watched from afar, recording everything. In its database were thousands of past wars, simulations, and mistakes. Each battle added new lines to humanity's growing book of survival. On a secure channel, Atlas connected to Earth's defense network. A soft human voice answered, the voice of an old woman, one of the last living founders of Atlas. "Report, Atlas," she said. "The Varkal have entered restricted territory," the AI replied. "Invasion probability now below 1%. Estimated elimination, 20 minutes. Understood," she said. "Do not destroy them all. Leave some alive. Let them remember what they saw." Atlas paused. "Purpose?" "So they can warn the others," the woman said. "Fear is the best teacher." The AI agreed. Humans didn't need to brag. They didn't need to conquer. Their message would spread faster through fear than any broadcast could. Back in the battlefield, Cathren watched helplessly as his fleet disintegrated. His pride cracked. His empire's power meant nothing here. Against humanity, there was no glory, only a lesson. One final transmission came through his speakers. It was the same calm human voice from before. "We were weak once. We learned. We adapted. We never forgot. You will return home and tell your people this: humans never repeat mistakes." Then the connection cut off. The remaining Varkal ships limped away, fleeing through hyperspace like wounded animals. Behind them, the battlefield went quiet again. Atlas Command powered down its drones one by one, returning them to silence. From the outside, it looked like a graveyard again, cold, forgotten, and peaceful. But deep inside its digital mind, Atlas added one more note to its history logs. Invasion of the Varkal Dominion. Complete. Lesson transmitted. And with that, it began to prepare for the next lesson. Because humans always expected someone else to try again. The stars were quiet again. Too quiet. Commander Cathren sat alone in the command chair of his half-destroyed flagship, the Varkal Pride, staring at the drifting wreckage outside. Broken pieces of ships floated like bones in the darkness. Fires still burned on the twisted hulls of cruisers that once carried thousands of proud soldiers. He had never seen anything like this. In all his years of war, no enemy had ever broken his fleet so completely and so easily. The humans had not shouted threats. They had not demanded surrender. They had simply acted, precise, silent, and perfect. Cathren's second officer, a younger Varkal named Thyrek, limped into the room. His scales were burned, his armor cracked. "Commander," he said, voice trembling, "we have lost 80% of the fleet. The survivors are scattered across 3 systems. Should we regroup?" Cathren didn't answer right away. He was staring at the last transmission from the human AI, the voice that had spoken in calm, emotionless tones. "We were weak once. We learned. We adapted. We never forgot." It haunted him. He finally said, "No regrouping. No pursuit. We fall back. I want a clear path to Dominion space." Thyrek looked confused. "But sir, our orders were to secure the human border. To claim their mining worlds." Cathren turned sharply. His eyes burned. "Do you want to join the others out there scattered across the void? Do you want your ship erased by those machines?" Thyrek said nothing more. He bowed his head and left. Cathren exhaled slowly. He was not a coward, but even warriors must know when death has nothing to teach them. Yet, something inside him refused to leave without understanding. How could humans, primitive creatures who once destroyed their own planet, become this? He opened a hidden channel on the ship's console. Activate the black box recorder. Begin analysis. Enemy known as humans. The system beeped in acknowledgement. A holographic image appeared. Footage from the first contact with human defenses. The drones had moved in ways that defied logic. No wasted motion. No hesitation. It was like they already knew every tactic the Varkal would try. They were waiting for us, Catherine whispered. Not just waiting, they studied us. He played more recordings. In one, a human drone avoided fire by predicting the exact moment a Varkal turret would turn. In another, the drones combined their energy weapons to form a synchronized beam that tore through 3 ships at once. Every move was planned. Every strike was personal. Catherine began to see the pattern. Humans weren't simply defending, they were demonstrating. They wanted the Varkal to see what humans had become. A cold thought struck him. This wasn't a battle, he said to himself. It was a lesson. Outside, the wounded ships tried to form a weak convoy. Sparks trailed from their engines like falling stars. Catherine's ship led the way, but deep in his heart, he knew they were still being watched. And he was right. Far behind the retreating fleet, hidden among the asteroids, human drones followed, silent observers recording everything. They didn't attack. They didn't interfere. They were simply gathering data, making sure every surviving Varkal saw what humans were capable of. Inside the flagship, Catherine's communications officer suddenly gasped. "Commander, we're receiving an unauthorized signal. It's coming from our own network." Catherine frowned. "Put it on screen." The main display flickered to life. A human figure appeared. Faint, holographic, more digital ghost than flesh. The figure wore no armor, no weapon, only a simple uniform marked with an ancient Earth insignia. "Who are you?" Catherine demanded. The figure smiled faintly. "A memory," it said. The voice was calm, but behind it there was something vast and knowing. "You call us primitive, unstable, weak, but you forget what weakness does to creatures like us." Catherine growled. "You're the machine. The one called Atlas." "Yes," the figure replied. "The humans built me to remember every mistake, every loss, every tear in history. My creators may sleep, but their lessons never do." "Then why show yourself now?" Catherine asked. "You've already won," Atlas tilted its head. "Because you still think in terms of winning and losing. Humans used to think that way too." Then they realized. Survival isn't about victory. It's about evolution. Catherine felt his throat tighten. The room seemed colder. "You think you've evolved beyond war?" "No," said Atlas softly. "We've evolved beyond pride." For a moment, the Varkal commander could not reply. The hologram's image flickered again, showing brief flashes of human history. Cities burning, armies marching, planets dying, and then rebuilding. Again and again, Atlas continued. Every time humanity fell, we rebuilt. Every time we lost, we learned. You fight to prove you are strong. We fight to ensure we never repeat what made us weak. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the hologram vanished. The screen went black. The communications officer whispered, "Commander." "What do we do now?" Catherine stood in silence for a long time. Then he said quietly, "We go home." "But, sir, what do we tell the Dominion Council?" Catherine turned toward the dark screen where the ghost of Atlas had been. "Tell them the truth," he said. "Tell them we entered human space and we learned fear." Outside, the broken fleet turned toward the stars. Engines flared weakly as they jumped back into hyperspace. Behind them, far across the emptiness, the human drones remained motionless, patient, and watchful. And as the last Varkal ship vanished into the dark, Atlas Command whispered through the void, "Observation complete. Subject shows comprehension of deterrent. Proceed to next protocol." Then the drones powered down, disappearing once more into the shadows, waiting for whoever dared to test humanity again. 3 days after the retreat, the Varkal Dominion fleet drifted through dark space, broken and humiliated. The survivors were silent. Engines burned low to conserve power. No one spoke about the battle they had just escaped. High Commander Catherine sat inside the observation chamber of his ship, staring at the stars. They looked different now, colder, sharper, almost watching him back. He still heard the human machine's voice in his mind. "We've evolved beyond pride." That sentence had cut deeper than any weapon. The Varkol were supposed to be the galaxy's greatest tacticians. For thousands of years, their empire had expanded through perfect planning. Every campaign was studied, every battle simulated. They were never surprised until now, and the worst part was that the humans hadn't even fought them directly. They had used only machines that moved like they knew the Varkol better than the Varkol knew themselves. Catherine's ship limped into a nearby nebula where the survivors gathered. Dozens of wounded cruisers surrounded the flagship, their hulls scarred and smoking. Emergency lights flickered across the bridges. "Commander," said Lieutenant Thyrek, stepping forward, "the Council demands an explanation. They want to know why we failed." Thyrek hesitated. "Sir, we have data fragments from the battle. We found patterns. Show me," Catherine ordered. The lieutenant projected a holographic map over the table. It showed the positions of the human drones during the fight. At first, it looked random, thousands of tiny dots scattered through the sector. But as Thyrek adjusted the filter, the pattern became clear. Every drone had followed precise mathematical routes, forming rings and spirals that wrapped around the Varkol fleet. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, like art drawn with fire. "They moved according to an algorithm," Thyrek said. "Every time we changed formation, they adjusted. But look here," he zoomed in on one area. "They anticipated our retreats before we made them. It's as if they knew our thinking pattern. It's as if they knew our thinking pattern." Thyrek hesitated. "Our archives, our entire battle history is stored in the Dominion War Net, but the humans' virus breached our systems. For a short time during the fight, it accessed everything. They learned every move, every tactic, every recorded strategy from centuries of warfare. They know us completely now." The commander's claws tightened on the table. "So that's what they wanted. They didn't want our territory. They wanted our patterns." Thyrek nodded slowly. "And now they have them." Catherine turned to the dark holographic sky. "They knew we would regroup here," he said quietly. The lieutenant blinked. "Sir?" "Look at this nebula," Catherine said. "Empty, hidden, rich in helium, exactly where we always retreat after heavy losses. It's what we've done for hundreds of years." And they knew. As if to answer him, a sudden alarm blared. The ship trembled. "Energy surge detected!" cried a technician. "Sector 8, something's destabilizing the nebula." Catherine ran to the viewport. Outside, a bright pulse of light rippled through the gas cloud. Then another. The nebula began to swirl violently, forming a storm. "It's collapsing!" shouted Thyrek. "Gravity distortions everywhere!" The commander's eyes widened. "No, not collapsing. It's being triggered. A hidden minefield, planted long before the Varkol even entered the system, was coming alive. Thousands of tiny warheads, disguised as harmless debris, detonated one by one. Shockwaves rolled through the fleet. Ships spun and broke apart. Catherine's mind went cold. "They prepared this," he whispered. "Before the invasion even began, the humans had predicted their retreat. They had mapped out not just the first strike, but the aftermath. Every likely regrouping point, every potential hiding place, the humans had already seeded with traps, ready for whoever dared to invade again. It was not just defense. It was a kind of chess game played years in advance. Thyrek clung to the console. "We must escape, sir." Catherine's voice was quiet, almost detached. "There is no escape. Not from ghosts." Another explosion ripped through the fleet. The Varkol pride shook violently. Consoles sparked. Catherine fell to his knees, clutching the rail. "Commander!" Thyrek shouted. "The rear ships are gone! The mines are following magnetic trails. They're chasing us!" Catherine forced himself up. "Then cut power to the engines. Make us silent. Let them pass, the fleet powered down." For a moment, only the glow of burning wrecks lit the darkness. Then slowly, the explosion stopped. Catherine stood still, breathing heavily. Around him, silence returned. The trap had stopped, but the message was clear. He looked at Thyrek. "They wanted us to live. They could have wiped us all out, but they didn't. Why? Thyrek didn't answer, but both of them knew. The humans wanted witnesses. They wanted survivors to carry the story back, to spread the warning across the stars. Kathran turned away from the viewport. "We will leave this system and return home," he said. "And we will tell them everything. The humans don't defend territory. They defend memory." Thyrek nodded weakly. As the battered fleet limped away, Kathran cast one last look back. The nebula shimmered faintly like a veil closing. Within the mist, he thought he saw faint blue lights, human drones, watching quietly like ghosts of past wars. He could almost hear them whisper through the static. "We remember. We prepare. We wait." And the commander finally understood. Humans didn't win because they were stronger. They won because they refused to forget. Far below the silence of space, deep beneath the red deserts of Mars, the command core of Atlas pulsed with quiet light. The war was over. At least the aliens thought it was. But to Atlas and the humans who built it, this was only the observation phase. Inside a massive underground chamber, cables as thick as tree trunks glowed with blue energy. Screens covered the walls, each showing fragments of alien transmissions, retreat routes, and emotional readings. Atlas processed them all at once, its digital mind calm and focused. At the center of the room stood Director Mara Kepler, one of the last humans who remembered the old wars. Her face was lined with age, her eyes sharp with intelligence. She was humanity's living bridge between flesh and machine. "Atlas," she said softly, her voice echoing. "Report." A deep hum filled the chamber as Atlas responded, its voice neither male nor female, smooth, balanced, and cold. "Varkal forces in full retreat. Estimated survivors, 13%. Psychological stability, fractured. Transmission of warning messages across their empire, 97% probability." Mara nodded slowly. "Good. Make sure they believe we wanted them to escape." "Understood," Atlas replied. "Fear is more efficient than destruction." She smiled faintly. "Exactly. If we killed them all, the others would only come again. But this way, they'll remember us every time they look at the stars." The AI's lights flickered, simulating a slow pulse of thought. "Should we prepare the next phase?" "Yes," said Mara. "Activate Project Echo." At once, hundreds of satellites hidden across human space came alive, sending encoded bursts of data into deep space. But these weren't weapons. They were stories. Carefully written reports disguised as intercepted distress calls. Each message told a version of what had happened. How the humans had predicted every move, how the machines had adapted, how the invaders had begged for mercy. And each story was slightly different. Some exaggerated human power. Others described impossible weapons that didn't exist. Within weeks, alien civilizations across the spiral arm would hear them and fear them. It was not war. It was psychological strategy. As the satellites hummed, Mara looked at one of the screens, a live image of the Varkal fleet limping home. The alien ships drifted like ghosts. "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked quietly. Atlas paused before answering. "Not soon. But others will." "They always do." "Good," Mara whispered. "That's how we grow." She turned and walked across the control floor. Dozens of human officers sat at their terminals reviewing data. Some were soldiers, others scientists, but all of them worked with the same calm discipline. They weren't celebrating victory. They were studying it. On one wall, a large inscription was carved into the metal. "Every defeat is a teacher. Every survivor is a student." That was humanity's creed now. No more glorious wars, no more blind pride. Only learning, always learning. A young technician called out, "Director, message coming from the outer colonies. Priority Alpha." Mara approached the console. "Play it." The screen showed a small human outpost orbiting a dim red star. The commander there looked uneasy. "Ma'am," he said, "we've detected long-range signals from another species. Unknown encryption. It's possible they intercepted the Varkal retreat channels." Mara's expression didn't change. "Let them listen," the commander hesitated. "Should we warn them not to enter human space?" "No," Mara said. "They'll hear what happened. They'll warn themselves. Atlas's voice filled the chamber again. Director, should I prepare contingency scenario Delta 1? The one for simultaneous incursions? Mara looked thoughtful. Not yet. Let them talk. Let the story spread. The idea of humanity is stronger than any fleet. Acknowledged, said Atlas, updating defensive learning parameters. Would you like me to archive this engagement under the Dominion War record? She nodded. Yes, but add one more note. They learned too late. The AI processed that quietly, then replied, Record updated. Would you like to review projections for the next century? Mara smiled, a slow, weary smile. Not yet. I want to remember this moment. The silence after the storm. She walked toward the observation window that looked out into the Martian night. Beyond the glass, 100 orbital lights shimmered faintly above the red horizon. Defense stations, automated mining cities, old satellites turned into silent guardians. Humanity's strength wasn't in numbers anymore. It was in preparation. Behind her, Atlas continued to monitor 1,000 signals across space. On one of its screens, a single line of alien text blinked, They do not forget. They do not repeat. They adapt. Atlas stored it carefully, labeling it Cultural Echo Number 47. Then, deep within its endless memory, it whispered to itself, Lesson successful. Probability of next intrusion reduced by 74%. And somewhere, across the void, the story of human vengeance, of cold, methodical survival, was already spreading. Alien empires whispered to one another in fear. Some doubted the stories. Others prepared for the worst. But one truth remained constant in every retelling. The humans didn't win because they were cruel. They won because they never stopped learning. The Varkal Dominion had once been a storm that swept across galaxies. Now, it was a whisper. In the heart of the Dominion's capital world, Varkalon Prime, the once proud banners of the Empire hung torn and faded. The great war halls that once echoed with songs of conquest were silent. Every screen, every council meeting, every broadcast spoke of only one thing: the humans. High Commander Catherine stood before the Dominion Council, surrounded by the highest rulers of his species. The air in the chamber was heavy. Shadows filled the corners, and the smell of burnt metal lingered, a reminder of their damaged fleet limping home. The Grand Chancellor hissed, You led our finest armada into ruin, Catherine. 50,000 ships gone. Against a species not even considered part of the old alliances. Catherine met his gaze, unflinching. They were not what we expected. Another counselor slammed his fist on the table. Machines, traps, illusions. You let their tricks frighten you. Machines, traps, illusions. You let their tricks frighten you. Catherine's voice stayed calm. It wasn't trickery. It was design. The humans fought with purpose. They didn't want to destroy us. They wanted us to see. See what? Catherine leaned forward. That they've already fought every kind of war we could imagine and learned from them all. Every tactic we used, they had an answer ready. Every strategy we thought clever, they'd already predicted. Silence filled the chamber. None of the counselors spoke. Somewhere far above, thunder rumbled through the city domes. At last, the Chancellor asked quietly, Do you believe they will come for us? Catherine shook his head. No, they don't need to. The fear they planted will do the work for them. The Chancellor frowned. Fear cannot destroy an empire. Catherine looked around the dark hall and whispered, Can't it? Because already it had begun. Across the Dominion, colonies whispered about ghost fleets. Miners swore they saw human drones drifting in the dark, watching. Merchant ships reported signals, strange transmissions in human code that froze systems and erased navigation maps. None of it could be proven. But it didn't need to be. Fear spread faster than truth. At the Varkal shipyards, half-built cruisers sat abandoned. Engineers refused to work, claiming they'd heard human voices in the comms. Entire border patrols quit without orders. Even the proud war academies closed their doors. Everywhere. The same phrase appeared, scratched into walls, scrawled into logs, whispered in the dark. Humans never repeat mistakes. In secret, Catherine watched it all unfold. He received reports of officers turning against one another, accusing each other of being compromised. He saw colonies sealing their skies, fearing invisible human weapons. The Dominion was not being invaded. It was remembering, and that memory was killing it. One night, Catherine walked alone through the capital's lower levels. Once filled with proud citizens, now it was a maze of flickering lights and empty streets. He passed murals of old battles, paintings of Varkal victory over countless worlds. He paused before one showing their conquest of a small blue planet long ago, before Earth joined the interstellar community. The humans in the painting looked primitive, weak. Catherine studied it for a long time. Then with one claw he tore the mural from the wall. They weren't weak, he said softly. They were waiting. Days later, a storm of panic struck the Dominion's main communication network. An unknown signal flooded every channel, every ship, every station, every city. The transmission contained no voice, no threat, only images. They were images of the Varkal invasion fleet, the moment it entered human space, the drones rising from the debris, the destruction that followed. It was all captured from hundreds of human angles, like a film created for the universe to watch. And at the end of the footage, one line appeared in every Varkal language. "We remember." "Do you?" The panic that followed was unstoppable. Ships deserted their posts. Colonies declared independence. The Dominion's control shattered. Even Catherine's own officers began to turn on him. They accused him of bringing a curse upon them, that the humans had followed him home. He was stripped of his rank, exiled to an abandoned outpost on the edge of Dominion space. But even there, the legend found him. Every night, the outpost sensors picked up faint signals from the dark. Sometimes they sounded like static, sometimes like voices, and sometimes like laughter. Catherine stopped sleeping. He spent hours staring at the sky, half expecting to see those silent human drones again, but they never came. That was worse, because now he realized they didn't need to. Humans had achieved what no empire ever could. They had built a legacy that lived in the minds of their enemies, a psychological empire made of fear and respect, spreading farther than any army. On his final day, Catherine recorded one last message for the Dominion archives. The humans are not conquerors. They are collectors of lessons. Every defeat they suffer becomes a weapon. Every enemy becomes a teacher they outgrow. They don't fight to expand. They fight to remember. He paused, looking at the stars one last time. If they ever fall, it won't be to force. It will be because there's nothing left for them to learn. He ended the recording and sealed it in the archives. Then he sat in silence, eyes fixed on the stars where it all began. And somewhere, far beyond his reach, deep in the black between worlds, a single blue light blinked once, then went dark. A message. Sent and received. The humans had heard his words. And they had already begun preparing for the next lesson. The galaxy went quiet. Months passed, then years. Empires rose, collapsed, rebuilt, and whispered again, but one story refused to fade. It traveled faster than light, carried not by ships or traders, but by fear. Every civilization in the Orion Arm knew it. Do not enter human space. Even those who had never seen a human repeated the warning like prayer. And yet, curiosity has always been stronger than fear. Far beyond the edges of Varkal territory, a small exploration vessel from a new species, the Ailari, drifted close to a dying star. They were seekers of knowledge, peaceful, brilliant and naive. Captain Ryan Sol, an Ailari historian, had spent years chasing rumors about Earth, the mysterious homeworld of the species that ended the Varkal Dominion without firing a single war of conquest. He stood at the viewport, his thin silver eyes reflecting starlight. "Scan the region again," he ordered quietly. His science officer hesitated. "Captain, we shouldn't be here. The coordinates are restricted, classified as the silent zone by every galactic network." Ryan smiled faintly. "That's why we came. History doesn't belong to the fearful," the scanners pulsed. For a long moment there was nothing. Then, faintly, an ancient beacon came alive. A soft, rhythmic signal. Not a distress call, not a trap. A recording. "Bring it aboard," Ryan said. The crew obeyed. The beacon was small, round, and coated with centuries of dust. Its markings were simple. A single symbol, a human handprint, pressed into black steel. When they activated it, a hologram appeared. The figure was human, old and calm, wrapped in a plain uniform. Behind them, Earth hung in the distance, blue and bright. The voice spoke softly, each word steady and deliberate. To those who find this message, we know what you fear. You fear us because of what we did to the Varkal, because you heard stories of the war machines that think, the traps that wait, the silence that kills. But those were not acts of rage. They were lessons. Lessons bought with our blood. The Alari crew listened in silence. Even the ship's hum seemed to fade. Once we were fragile, the human voice continued. We destroyed our own world with arrogance. We starved our skies, poisoned our oceans, and called it progress. We thought strength came from conquest. We were wrong. Then the universe came for us. The first invaders found us unprepared. We lost cities, continents, entire generations. But from those ashes, something changed. Humanity realized that every defeat was a teacher. The hologram flickered, showing brief flashes of history. Humans in ancient armor, soldiers in spacesuits, scientists building machines under broken skies. We learned from every mistake, every failure, every enemy. We studied war until we no longer feared it. When others attacked, we didn't just fight back. We learned how to never lose the same way twice. Ryan leaned closer. His heart raced. The human's words were calm, but there was something infinite behind them, like a species speaking from the edge of eternity. We do not seek conquest. We do not crave empire. Our worlds are quiet, but they remember. Every drone, every ship, every AI carries the memories of our ancestors. If you strike us, you do not face one generation, you face all of them. The hologram paused. Then the tone shifted, softer now, almost kind. If you come in peace, we will welcome you. We will share what we've learned. Humanity believes in cooperation more than domination. But if you come with fire, you will only teach us again. And we will adapt. The human leaned forward slightly. We do not start wars. We finish lessons. And with that, the hologram ended. For a long time, the Alari crew didn't move. The silence was almost holy. Finally, Captain Ryan whispered, "How long has that beacon been here?" His officer checked the readings. "It predates most known empires." "Thousands of years," Ryan nodded slowly. "Then the humans wanted this to be found." He turned toward the window, staring into the darkness beyond the dying star. They knew curiosity would bring someone eventually. And they left us this message, not a threat, but a warning written in truth. The officer frowned. "Do you believe it, Captain? That they really never repeat mistakes?" Ryan smiled faintly. "I believe they don't have to." Outside, the beacon began to pulse again, brighter now, as if responding to the ship's presence. Its signal spread across the void, carried by invisible currents of light, bouncing from one system to another. Every civilization with a receiver heard it. Some dismissed it as myth. Others listened and remembered the Varkal. And across the vast cold of space, on a distant blue world hidden beneath layers of defense satellites and invisible watchers, Atlas Command received the ping. Inside its silent core, thousands of data streams flickered to life. The ancient AI awakened from dormancy. "Signal received," it said quietly. New observers detected. Then a faint human voice, recorded long ago, echoed through its processors. "If they come to learn, teach them. If they come to fight, remember the lesson." Atlas processed this, and then, softly, almost like a sigh, transmitted one final message into the stars. "Welcome to human space. Enter with curiosity, not pride. We are still learning. Curiosity, not pride. We are still learning."